Good.
We're on?
We're on.
Okay,
So-
talk to me about the last thing we were discussing when we were off.
So, my last statement was the way that we treat others is the way that we treat ourselves.
That's good. I fully agree with that. That's a good existential point of view. Before that, we were talking about something that led us to that point, and I remember it. I was saying that in the past, I used to be a champion of free will in the existential mode. I studied the debate between the free willist point of view and the deterministic point of view. Determinism is a very strong case, and over the years, despite the fact that I still remain existential in that point of view about ourselves, individual selves, I have given way to the idea of determinism, to the point now where I will say that the individual's ability to be truly free has about the same chance that a drop of water has of directing its own life completely free, even though it's in the heart of a giant wave about to break upon the shore.
Right. It'd be like it trying to change the current.
Yeah, and I think we have, and people like Krishnamurti have made that part of their message. And then he'll ask you, are there ashes in the mouth now? You realize what you are, you're just a mechanism, and you don't really think out unless you pay attention and you do real critical looking at your own thought. And most people are not willing to do it. They identify, this is my thought, therefore it has to be right kind of thought, okay? And you find that among the academics as much as anybody else. So self-interest is at the heart of all this. So you have this ocean wave of forces that push self-interest.
Such as, like, examples of that are?
Any relationship you have, any transactions you have with other people, imagine if you had the ability to completely conceal your cheating, and therefore you could siphon away from the general system pennies from all different sources so that you wind up with, maybe $10 million an hour. And you can do that for a while so as to make your life more comfortable. And you're not hurting anybody. You're only taking a penny out of everybody's account, let's say, throughout all the world. Imagine if you could do that. Would you do it? I bet a lot of self-righteous people, if they had to make the choice, would do it.
Right.
And that's one of the points I made when I presented my theory of identity as the driving force in criminality. But that's a very elaborate
I was going
thing.
to say, I don't want to digress too much from your original point, but I can see that even within that one sin, and I've become more and more familiar with the 7 deadly sins over time, and not just saying, oh, that's, whatever from Catholicism, but really looking into the concepts of these things. And the extrapolation on that sin would be sloth, greed, among so many other things, right? And just one wouldn't even realize the hellhole that they're digging in for themselves by doing something that's seemingly innocent, that's seemingly harmless like that.
Or even envy. Like getting to be filthy rich and just indulging yourself. People would look at you and some people would say, the way they do about Trump, and lots of people would identify with that. I mean, lots of people identified with Hugh Hefner and the fact that he had sex with, 20,000 young women.
Right.
And oh God, he's terrible, but the wives are going to say, horrible person, an exploiter of women, of course.
Right.
Of course he goes, who's a sybarite? The guy with the harem. These guys are reincarnated. And I think a lot of guys rub their hands when they look. I know people have. I've heard people say good things about Howard Stern. This guy has never had a thought that originated above his waist. Really. He calls himself a genius, but he can't think of anything except exploiting the functions of the body.
So we digress.
So, no, but, okay, what it really comes down to is a question of character. And I said earlier
right.
that character and IQ are
There's
not necessarily linked.
No correlation.
They can be. Sometimes you think that a person of high intellect can be also a good person. Like
Right.
my great friend Jeff Brosco, who's the Deputy Secretary of Health in Florida.
Right.
Former student of mine. Wonderful person. Takes care of children. He's a pediatrician. And he's in charge of 850,000 children in Florida. And that job is in the best hands because of not only his intellect, but because of his heart. He's a good person. So that's one way, but I think that's as automatic as anything. I think that's
It's
inherently
very interesting.
And so the question becomes, and here it is again to you, what about it for you? And you touched on the question. You said, well, it's a matter of morals and relationship. That's
Right.
exactly right. So what do you do with that? Is there something else that's binding? Is there something else that we can stand on, put our faith in, be strong with, that tells us that it's truly the right thing to do, to be good to other people? Is there something? And I think yes, to me there is something. What is it? It's this self-awareness. It's this you are self-aware. You are aware of a whole number of things. Right now, you're aware of your body, the sensations, right? You're aware of the fact you're chewing gum. You're listening to the resonance and the fact that the sounds actually produce a certain type of chemistry in your brain, which is what we call understanding. A great mystery to me, right? So it's like recognition. Like a light that goes on and goes on when you understand something.
Amazing. Yeah.
So there's all this is going on, but where it's going on is in a consciousness that's constantly in change.
Right.
Which
to
means
touch
what?
upon.
Which means what? That in itself, it's not at all like the substances that it embraces in the phenomena.
That's what I was going to say, and there's so much, and especially at this point in history too, with the age of information and distraction, I should say, it's the age of distraction, right? There's so many things that we've gotten good at ignoring information because there's so much of it out there that we have to ignore it because it's like junk mail, but it's coming from everywhere. It's non-stop. And so sorting out quality is very difficult, but that's off the topic. What I really wanted to say was in this period in history, we are so external, looking at stuff moving so fast. Like, because of that the internet and our interactions and our schedules and justifying our existence in a capitalist economy and dying to make ends meet and climb the ladder as high as possible, many times to just fall off of it. It's amazing how outwardly projected maybe it's the culture, maybe it's the whole world is right now. And so disembodiment has to be running rampant throughout people. And they continue to externalize their problems, their issues, and defer it to other things instead of taking responsibility for those things. And just saying, like, much of this is my issue to deal with, not to just say somebody else will deal with it, somebody else can take this off my hands. And I think it's extremely subconscious and fast moving that people jump to that point. It certainly makes people irritated with me when I tell them that they have to figure out their issues.
Well, I think what you're implying is self-responsibility, and therefore I could try to trace it back into its ontological roots, and therefore my mindset is taking me to the very nature of the consciousness that you really are.
Right.
Now, you can be profoundly impelled by DNA and the social conditions of your life. But there may be more to you too. You may have enough of a certain, perhaps a certain brain kind of brain chemistry that allows you to be meditative and to look back upon yourself. I think most people have this, but I think most people do not value it. Not the way it should be valued, because it is the doorway to higher states of consciousness, higher understanding. Because if you can look at yourself with objectivity and you can stop pretending to be a king or a queen, stop pretending to be this idealized self that can never be wrong and has to defend itself, because basically it feels paranoid, doesn't even know why, doesn't even understand it, but it will defend itself to the death. And if you can get past all that by just seeing it for what it is, the fact that you are just one more mechanism that's been created, but you are endowed with the sacred consciousness. You are a sacred consciousness. It doesn't matter if you're living in the heart of a machine. You are that consciousness of the machine. You are what gives it the life.
Right, and anything that is done from a disembodied state, it goes against being in alignment with that consciousness, being one with that.
I agree with you, because to be truly embodied is the way that I like to speak of overcoming all the blocks. When there are blocks, one is disembodied by having lumps in the consciousness, and there's a snags, and they become concentrations of excessive negative thinking and all that.
Right. Unimaginable hells for some people. They just don't realize where they're walking into.
Yeah, it's like this. It's like here's empty space. Now suddenly it's populated by like 5,000 or 6,000 big blocks, and you are the empty space, but you're so hooked up on these 5,000 or 6,000 blocks. And what are they? They're made of memories. They're like little spasms that took on the form of square blocks. Isn't that amazing? And they catch you. You try to drift through space without the pain, and you keep bumping into these blocks, and they're all yours. And they all come from experiences that memory puts away and packages it under Hertz.
Right.
In the Department of Hertz.
It's amazing on my end and in my industry. I see this expressed as movement.
Oh.
Okay. So these subconscious, you talked about a long time ago, you talked about Rolfing and how you can store memory inside your body. No shit. I can say explicitly, no shit. Because I will remember when I broke my leg in judo, I remember what it felt like, and I remember where the person was positioned, and I'll tell you that there's a hesitation every time somebody gets on that side of me at this point. As if I will not let that happen again when I broke my left leg.
You gave in. You didn't do something to him, and he took advantage of it.
No. Well, yes, kind of. Yeah.
The guy.
For me to.
You could have hurt him, man. You didn't.
No. It wasn't that. I was actually really happy that he passed my position of advantage that easily, and he got on the side of me. But as I went to go, oh, you got me, like to say it, he had sat so hard on my leg. It buckled inward. My left leg buckled inward. Now, I mean, since then I've squatted 400 pounds.
How long ago was that, John?
It was months ago, many months ago. Maybe a year at this point.
It was a crack.
There was a 3 crunch crack. So, but anyway, my point behind that is I feel that pain, like not on a conscious level, sharp shooting pain, but I can imagine the moment that happened, and it sticks out in my mind. It's a splinter in my memory. And so we all store these things. You're sitting at a desk and you're hunched over the desk and you're stressing out about finishing your doctoral dissertation. It's there, it sits in you. And so every time you would go into that spot, put yourself under that condition, it could be expressed in that way. Maybe from boxing you had gotten hit in the previous day and you're slouching to compensate for that, and you now have all of that bound inside of your body on so many different levels, so many different systems. And so every time you go to do something, there's a subconscious tendency to move around that pain. And you extrapolate that over thousands of movements. And a lot of times what I'm trying to do in my practice with people right now, even though I sound absolutely insane doing this, is I'm trying to get people back inside their body so that they can overcome these subconscious tendencies that are holding them back from getting to the goal that they are perceiving as something of value, something that they're trying to pursue. I'm trying to get a direct link between them and done.
If I could suggest something, show this video to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But because we've been angling towards them all this while anyway. So let's go back and clarify a few things, sure, so that people can hear what I think is closer to the truth. The fact is, there will be no structure that is anything but a construct in morality. That's what the ethics professor said only recently when he beat 5 conservatives on campus with a bike lock, I guess one of the big chain, and he beat them into bloody messes. And he said there's no construct for morality. There's a guy teaching at the college level and he doesn't have any moral compass. Okay? And you know my point, I've made this on video and I'll say it again, it comes out of your self-awareness, your embodied awareness without the blocks. Without the blocks, your embodied awareness is very beautiful. Okay? But if you carry all the blocks the way I carried the day my older brother tried to drown me down at Sandy Point by holding me upside down in the water by my ankles. When I got roughed, I remembered that. I had blocked it out for years and years, and when he was working on my ankles, the picture on Sandy Point kept coming up, and then the next day when I was doing hatha yoga, upside down, headstand, 25-minute headstands every day, great for flooding the brain, and everything becomes very clear.
Right. Well, put you in the same position, certainly.
And I remembered my brother tried to drown me, and that's why I kept getting a picture of the beach yesterday. Right. Wow. So it didn't come to me all at once.
Right.
And so things are okay. So that's a point for the sake of embodiment.
Yes.
Your point. And embodiment is the clearest, the most direct way to morality if you have any heart at all. Okay. And I imagine a lot of you guys do. Who knows? If you don't, you're called a psychopath. Okay? So, I mean, you can still train and all that, but he won't teach you how to kill anybody.
Send you off to the military.
But embodiment, real embodiment is being relaxed in the body without the blocks. And if you are that way, then you also know that pain is not welcome. You don't need pain. Unless you're not a masochist. You don't need it. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to say, oh, I can be beyond pain, I'm enlightened. Oh, no, you're not going to be when you get real pain. I've made a point about that.
Yes.
Real pain will teach you a big, big lesson. Real pain, inescapable pain. Let me see how enlightened you are now. You are not beyond the world. So you realize that pain is not to be had, and certainly nothing to be imposed upon another sentient being.
Right.
And in this world, pain is inflicted in such a way that the evil rises like and makes a big devil out of itself. You know what I mean? Seriously. If all the horror, the negativity that goes into inflicting pain on poor dogs they have to torture with blowtorch before they eat them for the sake of tenderizing the... I mean, doing these unbelievable things to animals, to other human beings, they can justify using their horseshit books in the way that they interpret that stuff, whatever value it has. They can cut off heads and do things like that. The Inquisition used to torture people to death. I mean, any institution becomes corrupt by its nature. The only thing that you can depend upon is yourself for learning.
Right. Your
self-knowledge, and that comes with the Socratic dictum, know thyself. And how do you do that? You pay attention to everything. You pay attention, the Moody Blues, that's saying to make the journey out and in. You pay attention to the world, but you also are paying attention to yourself, especially when you're in transactions, human transactions. It's the greatest guru you can have. You can find out all kinds of stuff, and you can find out about yourself too, if you can just be cool.
How does one pay attention without becoming disembodied and creating a homunculus? How does one stay focused? Stay in the
Good
breathing?
question. It's not a homunculus. It's a homunculus. It's not
sorry.
Herman.
That's
Herman.
my fault. Sure, homunculus.
Homunculus. Homo.
Word of
Homunculus. Homunculus.
word of the day. And it define homunculus for people that
He's
don't
a
know.
little man that stands inside your head that watches, but inside his head there's a little man, and inside his head there's a little man. So it's the infinite regress.
So it's the ghost in the shell concept.
You can think of it that way.
But-
That's not what you are. Think of yourself through your senses.
Right.
Your feet are sacred. You see, the whole
experience.
Of course, in miracles is worth it. It's really worth it. I mean, I know a lot of people want to pretend to themselves that they're atheists. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. They don't have to be. They don't have to believe believers or non-believers. They don't realize what they have to be as questioners.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. Is that this? I believe it's they've rushed to a conclusion without really looking at the
And why do
different
they
levels
do
of
that?
information. Well, because it's fear,
Of what?
ontological loneliness.
No, yeah, maybe. I mean, you can put that into everything.
Yeah.
But it fear of what? Punishment. I mean, if you believe in the Catholic Church,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah.
like, oh, you're not going to church you're going to hell.
Right.
You're going 7 years of hell for every Sunday you miss. Wait a minute, I thought hell was forever anyway. Yeah, I mean, they do all kinds of things. They pile on, and that makes so. But when you're brought up in that fundamental point of view, you want to get rid of the whole thing, and you throw the baby out with the bathwater. So you throw out. You know me. I subscribe to what Alan Watts and all these other guys said back in the '60s. That is, Jesus Christ is cosmic consciousness. Is cosmic consciousness. And is there cosmic consciousness? Well, lots of people have the experience, and it can be. I mean, there's a book called Cosmic Consciousness. In fact, I own it, and all kinds of people have had experiences with it, and of course, it's life changing.
And that is to explain cosmic consciousness really quick and reiterate it back with the point that we originally started with. It is to experience the entirety of the whole thing
As oneself,
as oneself.
and it's all lighted up, and there's no pain, and there's no fear, there's no consequences, there's no guilt, there's nothing but how do you talk about happiness at that level? It's a bliss. It's more than just a dreamy bliss. It's an awake bliss.
It would be a heavenly experience.
Yeah, everything is heavenly.
Right.
You realize now a lot of people have had experiences like this using psychedelics, but they don't last.
Right. Well, and thus they throw themselves into hell and destroy their bodies. Few have happened around me in my life. I was gonna say, going back to your point before that without going too deep into the story about it, I've definitely experienced similar traumatic things coming up in body awareness, like raising the awareness of the body. Similar, like events relating back to emotional and physical traumas that are positioned in the body in different spots. So I don't have to go too deeply into it, but it's there. And for those that think that ignoring it will make it go away, that's like ignoring glass in your foot and pretending that it'll heal.
You have a great deal to say to your.
Yeah.
How do you think of them? Are they
clan.
minions? Are they
That would imply
vicious little wolves? Are they wolves? Are they?
Yeah,
got some wolves in
certainly.
there?
I'm trying to build that. I mean, that's why I named the weightlifting part Iron Wolf.
Iron wolf. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
So it's like we lift iron and
Yeah,
act like
wolves. I
pack
like
animals.
that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's good.
I like wolves. Because,
Right.
I mean, I love the two chihuahuas, right? So, miniature wolves, especially Lucy. I bet people would say, if they ever tuned into this after watching us in the past, they'd say, I don't want to watch him, he doesn't have a dog on his lap today.
Right. Yeah, it's supposed to be a huge distraction for people.
Oh,
in
it is.
videos, yeah.
It is, absolutely.
Animals, never put animals in unless they're the
On
main
film,
subject.
people don't want to work with dogs on film.
Right.
Everybody wants the dog. Why not?
Right. Well, in closing, relating it back to the first thing that we had talked about, treating the external expression that you express at everything else in the world is
Yep.
very much
Yourself.
Very much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you just turn the energy right back around. So it's a karmic effect, I think. Yeah.
Cosmic consciousness can be experienced, I think, at different levels. You can actually, suddenly be blinded by a light that it doesn't blind you, but it actually expands your vision.
Yeah.
And for a while you see way beyond everything.
Right.
And it's all light. So it lights you. I mean, imagine seeing the light. We live in darkness compared to what we could live in. According to what I've read, and I somehow think it's almost true. I mean, we're at a very low level, but there are levels that are made of pure light. They're not even created, they always were. That's beautiful stuff. I don't know, it's very romantic. But that's Gnosticism would teach that. Other things too. But we're at a dark level.
Yeah.
So imagine having a moment that would seem to last a lifetime where everything explodes and you see the whole light. The way Dostoevsky used to experience his own consciousness just before you have an epileptic seizure. He used to pay for that with an epileptic seizure that would just knock him out. But that's what he used to speak. I read about it in The Idiot. His main character used to have it. Prince Mishkin, the idiot. And he used to have epilepsy. But before he had his epileptic seizures, he would have a moment of cosmic consciousness. Amazing. He's not the only one. I think the others too. I've forgotten who. But others too have had that. Not everybody.
I'm really looking forward to. I hope that people embrace this level of information in the future, and 10 years from now, 20 years from now, people are finding new things about just experience itself and not just shoving it under a carpet and saying it's not useful to the world, because it is the entirety of the world. You know,
I
it's
think
like living in a box.
I'm sorry to say this, but I hope that this kind of discussion is not meaningful during a period in civilized life where the light is 20% of what it is now, and where there's darkness and starvation and suffering, hundreds of percent beyond where we are now. Then things like this become important, because then it's all about perspective. And like my first book, Wandering the Mandala, I know that could be popular in some places. If you lived in a dystopian society, and it's like, okay, we know what that is, right? If you lived in that society, it might be a dark existential consolation to read that stuff, because that basically is all about the heart while it is in the desert. That thing is almost all in the desert, right?
And with that being said, we're working on publishing it. So
yeah, we should.
When it comes out, buy it.
Good. Oh, good sales, John. Do I owe you a commission?